Friends, welcome to the Reach More podcast. My co-host is Madi Pablo. My guest is Brian McAdams. Brian, Madi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Hey, Madi, how are you?
Doing good. Excited to hear about Brian's apostolate and what the Lord's doing.
Yeah, me too. Let's jump right in. So, Brian, what is the apostolate that you and your wife discerned?
Well, again, I think as I was mentioning off air, I had the privilege of going through a Reach More program at St. Anne. And at the end of that course, they encouraged us to start a small group. And it took, several months for us to kind of figure out really what we wanted to do. But after a lot of prayer and discernment, we decided that a married couple small group was something that was weighing heavily on us and something that we really, really wanted to do. And, thought long and hard about who to invite, and got over some fears in that regard and invited what ended up being a perfect group of couples. And we started it at the beginning of last fall, and it's been going strong ever since.
Yeah.
So walk me through some of the discernment of the couples that you invited. And I'm curious, did all of them say yes, or did half of them? Tell me about the invitation process.
Well, one of the reasons, and I'll back up, the reason we wanted to do a couples small group is, we individually we're involved in separate things at the church. My wife does some things with some women's groups. I do some things with some men's groups. And we really wanted to find something where we could kind of grow together, spend time on our marriage, discuss marriage with other married couples at similar stages of life. And so we were kind of looking for couples that fit that criteria, that were kind of in a similar age range, had kids kind of the same age. So that was kind of one of the criterias. In fact, the first couple that we thought to invite, we found out also went through the Reach More program, in an earlier class. And so mentally, we initially just kind of crossed them off our list. We thought, okay, they've been tasked with starting their own small group. We can't invite them to ours. And so that was a little bit of maybe this is not going to work out. And we saw them at Mass one day, and it was actually a Reach More Mass where they were kind of, patting people on the back for attending Reach More. And we saw them at that Mass, and they said, "You went through Reach More?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And so, we went to dinner with them, and they said, "Do you want to start a small group with us?" And so my wife and I kind of looked at each other and said, "This is God's way of saying you need to kind of keep pushing forward, and don't get discouraged." And so we took that with a big vote of confidence, and crafted an email, sent it to them. We went back and forth on kind of how to invite. And then ultimately invited, 4 couples. And so we have 10 people total. Nobody said no. We were very nervous about the people that we were inviting because nobody knew each other. I remember going over to one couple's house, the couple that also went through Reach More, who we had dinner with. And I said, "Here are the people that we're thinking of. Do you know any of them?" And they, "No, we don't. We don't know any of them." And I said, "Okay." And so it was a big leap of faith to see if, number one, anybody would say yes, but number two, how well was this group going to, mesh, and get along. And surprisingly, it was a huge hit the first night. It was great.
That's awesome. What do you do? How often do you meet, and what kind of things do you do every time you meet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was one of the hardest things to figure out. What are we going to do? And part of the invite was, you're not married to this small group. We were very careful to kind of put this invitation in their inbox with a timestamp. And so what we decided to do was we were going to meet around a book, and we decided that we're all going to kind of read Time for God. We felt like
by Father Jacques Philippe.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
That was just a great topic for where everybody was in their life. I mean, I have 3 kids. They're in sports. We have something going on every night of the week. Always attending a game on Saturdays. And so life's just crazy. And we knew that was the case for everybody, and felt like, number one, this is a great book to kind of recalibrate and refocus everybody's attention on what's important. But also, if you don't want to do this group forever, as soon as the book's over, you can bow out. And so we really kind of wanted to make sure everybody saw that exit ramp right up front. And so that's kind of how we position the group. We decided early on that we're going to meet once a month on Fridays. We're going to do dinner, and the location can bounce around. The first hour is kind of a social hour with food, just kind of catching up on where everybody's at. And then the second hour is discussing where we are with the book. And a different person will lead it every night. So, whoever's leading that part of the conversation will come with some, 2 or 3 questions. We'll go around the room, and then we'll close the night by just going around the room for individual prayer intentions, kind of lifting each other up. If somebody's going through a hard time, kind of spending, a little bit more time with that person. And so that's generally
Oh, I love that. So how much time at the end of that hour would you say that that you were aiming for to spend time in prayer together? The time spent in that part is becoming longer and longer, which is very nice. Actually, the time that we're spending talking about the book is shrinking. and I've been told by other people that have done small groups that a lot of people start with the book thing, and then it just kind of dwindles because husbands don't read the book. The wives are kind of filling them in. What was in the last chapter? Like, they're getting filled in with the cliff notes on the way to the small group meeting. And that's definitely been the case with our small group. But whether people are kind of caught up on the book or not, or people are kind of, educated to answer the questions that we pose, it's not really about that. It's kind of morphed into, again, just this building each other up, a community of folks that hold each other accountable, that are there to lean on each other. And so that's why that last part's really kind of grown. Yeah. Do you end up meeting one-on-one with any of the guys outside of the monthly group?
Yeah, we do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So we were actually planning a fishing trip over December with just the guys, but it fell through just with schedules and the Christmas festivities. We have something similar planned for like a lake thing later in the summer. There's if we'll meet kind of one-on-one, it's maybe for coffee one morning, or and it's random. We don't schedule that. We just kind of decide to do it on a whim, and just try to treat it like a friendship, and not something that we have to do, or something that we're trying to a series of topics that we're trying to cover. It's really just building relationship and just spending time with one another.
Yeah,
that's really the point of that.
How many months have you been leading the book? Is it Time for God by Jacques Philippe? Was that it?
Yeah.
How many months have y'all been meeting?
I think our first meeting was in September last year.
Uh-huh.
And so we did September, October, November, and then we took a break in December.
Uh-huh.
It was just too hard to schedule with everything. And then we did our first meeting of the new year just a couple weeks ago.
Great.
So we've only had four meetings.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Another question for you. So as you and your wife were discerning this, what were some of the challenges or the costs that you counted? Jesus says, if you want to build a tower, let's count the cost and then let's go do it. Did y'all see any costs that you had to weigh and then decide, okay, despite the cost, we're going to do this?
Well, and the book is a perfect title for that. It's time. Time is the cost. Just being so busy and being kind of caught up in schedules and what do we have to do tonight and this night, and knowing what you're going to do the weekend 2 weeks prior. Just the thought of starting a small group and leading one, and being responsible for kind of keeping it going, weighed a lot in the beginning, but something that we just said, we know we can make it work, and we just have to do it. And I think that's the other thing too, is, this doesn't really answer your question, but I kind of touched on it in the beginning. We're involved in separate things at church. My wife and I volunteer with the baptism ministry at St. Anne's, and I volunteer and help with a men's group, and several other things. But it's all things that we've been asked to do. We're not leading any of that stuff. And so starting this small group really was an opportunity for us to kind of take charge and kind of put our own stamp on something and lead something, which was a little scary and something that we didn't expect that we would do, but really, really happy that we've done it.
Yeah. How have you seen this affect your marriage or the marriages that are involved?
Great question.
I only positively. I mean, I think for our own marriage, it's wonderful. Every time we leave a meeting, we always look at each other and we say, we're so happy we did this. We love this group.
Nice.
This is like great for the soul.
Yeah.
And it's so different than leaving. We have really good friends that aren't Catholic. We have friends that are Catholic that aren't in our small group. Yeah. We'll go to dinner and we'll hang out, but there's something different about leaving this small group and this gathering where you're it's just different, and you feel good in your heart. There was one guy who's not Catholic, and I didn't know that.
Tell us more.
And he one of the things that I took away, right or wrong, from the Reach More class was when you go to start a small group, just invite anybody that's on your heart. Invite a neighbor, invite a stranger, invite your barber.
Yes.
And that was really daunting. And I thought, I'm going to dip my toe in the small group water first and invite like-minded people, get used to it. And then, I think that's the maybe goal later on, is to invite, more people into the group or start another one. But when we reached out to these couples, we knew that they all went to St. Anne. And after the first meeting, somebody told me, and maybe I knew this and I had forgotten, but one husband isn't Catholic. Now, he goes to St. Anne. He goes with his wife and his kids, but he was the most energetic that first night. In fact, he came up to me and he grabbed my arm and he said, "Thank you for inviting us. I needed this."
Awesome.
And the second meeting we had, he spoke the most. He was the one that read the book the best. He chimed in on every question. He led the conversation. It was awesome. It was great.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Hey, how old are your kids? What's the age range?
So we have 3, 10, 8, and 6.
Okay. Have you seen this affect them in any sort of way, since this is you and your wife? I mean, taking once a month.
No, I don't even know if they're that aware of what we're going to do. I mean, I think they, we say we're going to a Bible study, and they're like, okay. They get most excited about the babysitter coming over. We don't do babysitters that often. My parents kind of live nearby, so we always use my parents. But for this, we always get a babysitter, and they always think that's so fun.
That's awesome. I also think it's a beautiful thing. I love that both of you were involved in different ministries, but there's something about, someone once told me that marriage can be like an opportunity for mission. And so by you and your spouse doing this together, it's like an opportunity to serve the Lord together and to reach out together, which I think is going to have a beautiful ways of through your witness, you're bringing others and learning from other marriages as well, which is something really special about this specific ministry. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. One more question. So you've met, I think, 4 times now: September, October, November, January.
Mm-hmm.
How many more sessions do you see with this book?
I think we only have 2 more sessions with the book, and then we're done. And we've already, we had a conversation in our last meeting about wanting to kind of continue, and it was really funny because we went around the group and everybody wanted to say yes, but everybody was kind of sort of waiting to go, didn't want to go first. But we all kind of said, yes, we want to stick with this group. Everybody's so happy. We're on a text thread together. We text every week. It's been great. So
awesome.
The group will continue. What we kind of study or meet about is sort of up for discussion.
Yeah. In your life, brother, how has a time for God helped you to have more time for God? And what has the Lord been teaching you through these last 5 months of leading this apostolate with your wife?
Well, relating to the book, I think, the biggest thing that I've taken away from the book is it's okay to get frustrated in prayer. It's okay for it to not go well. It's okay. There's no perfect way to do it. It's not like yoga. It's not a meditation. And just to kind of hear other people's struggles with it in the course of the small group is therapeutic in a lot of ways. And just hearing how other people establish that relationship with Christ. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's what prayer is. It's you're building a relationship with someone, and it's not all about you talking, and you have to listen. And that's when a lot of our conversation has been about how do you listen, and what mindset do you put yourself in to listen with your whole heart and your whole mind. And so that's been the biggest kind of takeaway and the biggest focus of mine in my personal prayer life. I can't remember what your second question was.
What has the Lord been teaching you through this season of your life? And it sounds like you told me one of the things is he's teaching you how to listen and it sounds like to be more patient with yourself in prayer.
Yeah. And it's not so much, the thing that I'm maybe struggling with the most right now is not something that I'm even getting help with from the small group. It's just kind of just a fear of the unknown, a fear of the future, just kind of being patient a little bit. And so, certainly kind of spending time in adoration and prayer has been very, very helpful.
Oh, beautiful, man. Good stuff, brother. Good stuff.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that will go through the Reach More training and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. And then they just don't. It takes a while. They get super hesitant. They're weirded out. It's just they kind of just do a standstill. It sounds like you were able to kind of move forward, especially when you got your wife on board and kind of moved from there. What advice would you give to people that are kind of just they finish the training group and they're just kind of waiting for God to open the skies and make everything super easy? What would you tell them to move forward?
Well, I guess I would just ask, I would encourage them to not waste the time that they invested in that class. And that's the thing that kind of weighed on my heart the most was, I knew what the ask was going to be before signing up for the class, because I pushed and prodded, what are we doing in this class? What's the point of it? How are we going to measure success? Because it was for an entire spring, I think 12 classes meeting once a week for 2 hours. It was a big commitment, given everybody's schedules and everything going on. And so if you're going to do that and say yes to that and commit your time and go to those classes, I didn't want that time to be wasted for myself. I didn't want that class to end and then nothing come from it, because I would have looked back and say, why did I go to that class? Why did I spend that time away from my kids on, every Monday or Tuesday night? What was I doing there? If nothing's going to happen. And so I had to find it within myself to kind of take the next step and kind of share what I learned and start something new.
Yeah, don't waste the grace.
Right.
What's some ROI?
Have you seen a difference with the way that you are with your kids as well? Have you thought about how to apply this with your children?
Yeah, I have. I should have said this on one of the earlier questions, but one of the things that we've actually started talking about as a group is continuing to do our monthly meetings, but we want to kind of start incorporating some time with everybody's kids. And so we talked about doing a Super Bowl party where everybody got together and we had kids come, because these meetings are, nobody brings their kids, everybody gets a babysitter. But we want to start doing stuff where we can kind of get the kids together. And some of us have met, not the whole group, but smaller pieces of the group have met and let our kids kind of, establish relationships with one another. And we think that that's really important. And And so, yeah, I mean, I think anytime that you can make Jesus a bigger part of your life, it's going to affect everything in a positive way.
Awesome, man. All right. So what advice would you give? One or two things to somebody who's just finishing up the training group. Maybe their spouse didn't go through it, but they're like, all right, I'm fired up. What's the next step? How should I do this? What would you tell them?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You know, you got this, you can do it. If I can start a small group, anybody can start a small group.
Well, this has been fun, Brian. Do you have any questions for us before we go? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up. This has been great.
I don't think so. I really appreciate the time. I very much appreciate the opportunity and the chance to kind of share a little bit about what we've been doing. And just thank you guys so much.
Awesome, brother. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless y'all.
Well, that wraps up the Reach More podcast. My guest today was Brian McAdams, and my co-host is Madi Pablo. The thing that I'm taking away from the podcast today is the courage that Brian and his wife had to start their apostolate. So often as we pray, the Lord will convict us and give us insight into the apostolate that he has, the mission that he is inviting us to. But it still takes courage to step into that mission. And so let's ask for courage. Lord, give us the courage to live out the mission that you are inviting us into. Yes, there's a cost. And Brian talked about the cost of time. But as you could tell from our interview with him, there was a joy that he exuded from responding to the Lord's call. And the Lord has that same joy that he desires to give each of us as we enter into our mission. Well, today more than ever, the harvest is plentiful. The laborers are few. Will you join Jesus and courageously respond to the mission that he is inviting you into, to be a co-laborer with him for the harvest? If this is the desire of your heart, why don't you begin by downloading the Evangelical Catholic app and use the Define, Plan, and Act tool to get started. If you've done that, in that app, there's an opportunity to share your apostolate with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've done that, would you please consider joining the Reach More mission financially with a monthly mustard seed gift? Friends, the Lord has more in store than ever before. More, Lord, more today than yesterday.